My Perestroika is a documentary film airing on PBS in the POV series, and with me is Robin Hessman, the director of the film. Hi, Robin.
Hi.
Thanks for joining me.
Thanks.
So, My Perestroika follows 5 Russians who are about our age. Russians who began in school in the communist USSR, Soviet Union, and now are adults in a democratic, free market culture.
This generation in particular completely straddles the old world and the new world because their childhoods were basically completely typical Soviet childhoods, and then they were teenagers and coming of age just when Gorbachev came to power, and they graduated from college the year that the USSR collapsed, which was 1991, 20 years ago exactly. So they had a childhood completely in one world, their sort of transition period as the country was going through all of those very fast changes, and then they started adulthood in this brand new country.
Of course, it's an amazing subject, and it's great that you were able to put it together in a film, but tell us what it means to you, because you have some personal history with Russia.
Yes, I'm not Russian. I don't have even any family background going generations back. Nobody was from there, but I was always curious about Russia, about the Soviet Union as a kid. I think in part because of the Cold War and the idea that this was this big, bad, evil empire that wanted to destroy the planet with nuclear weapons, and I wanted to know more about it. I think even on some level I was skeptical as a child that an entire country could only be full of mean and evil people. So I started to read about Russia. I read Russian literature, I read Russian history. I subscribed to Soviet Life magazine when I was 10, to my parents' utter horror. It was a magazine put out by the Soviet Foreign Ministry in English, and was, pretty much an advertisement for how great the USSR was. And I can't say that the articles were that fascinating for a 10-year-old, but the photographs were incredible, especially the photographs of kids. So eventually I wound up going there for the first time when I was 18, and I wound up living there from 1991 to 1999. I went to film school there. I produced Russian Sesame Street for the Children's Television Workshop and made some short documentaries, and it really became the place where I lived all of my early adult years and an important part of my life as well.
So, going from learning about the USSR as a child and living in that transitionary time, what was your takeaway?
I think one of my takeaways was how hard it is to explain and how hard it is to sum up. When I came back to the States at the end of '99, I got the feeling that my friends would really love me to tell them 1 or 2 sentences that then they could carry with them as what to think about Russia, or what the experience had been for me, or what Russians think now about their country. And this kind of enormous political, historical, sociological change is incredibly complicated, not just for the entire country and for a generation, but also for every individual. I have countless stories of friends who feel conflicting things one day or the opposite the next. And so one of the things I realized was how difficult it was in a few sentences to explain. And another thing was how the pace of daily life when you're living through changes like that often doesn't allow you the opportunity to stop and reflect. Living in Russia in the 90s, whereas one day Yeltsin might dissolve the parliament, on the other hand, I had exams to study for or a job to get to, and people's lives go on. And whereas from far, when we're reading the headlines, we might think, oh my God, everyone's sitting there clutching their heads and doesn't know what to do. In certain sectors of life, people are feeding their children breakfast and going about their daily lives. And so I think one thing that the film allowed for the 5 people in it is it gave them the opportunity for the first time in these last 20 years, since all of these changes have happened, to sit and stop and reflect about what really has this meant for them.
It was interesting to watch them. You used their home movies as a way to look back. And yes, and give them the opportunity in the film to look and reflect. There seemed to be mixed feelings about that past. There was some romanticism, and yet present confusion. Yeah, I mean, so after the experience of going through the film, what were some of the reactions of the subjects of the film?
They were all pleased with the film, and especially Borutta and Luba, the history teachers. And that was something I was very proud of, because as historians, they like the film. They think it's an important document for future generations to see, and they've said that they're proud to be a part of it, which means a lot, because I've spent 5.5 years with all of them, following them, filming them, using their home movies, listening to their stories, getting to know all of them. But still, that moment, they all have said they had no idea what the film would be like in the end, and it is a really important moment when they see it. And the home movies are really wonderful. It's the kind of personal, everyday stuff of real human life that we certainly didn't see here growing up, about life in the Soviet Union. I think the only things I ever saw were maybe soldiers marching in formation, or people standing in bread lines, and these are the stuff of what really humanizes it. It's children playing with their grandfather or learning to ride a bicycle, and really does show that for all of the political shows or the propaganda or government animosity or what have you, there are human beings that live in both places. And that's one thing that audience members after the theatrical run have come to say, that they really had no idea just how much we have in common, and how much we had in common even back then.
Mm-hmm. So, and I guess today, for culture there, with the advertising and the consumerism that they're able to enjoy if they can afford it, they have even more in common.
Yes.
Maybe more than they wanted. I mean, I don't know what the film is, if the film has a statement about that, or if they have made up their minds.
Well, certainly you can see that the childhood that their children today are having is very different from their own childhood. They all grew up when the Soviet Union was really cut off from the rest of the world, behind the Iron Curtain. And their kids today are global kids. They are watching South Park. They are listening to their iPods, and they're very much plugged into the same media that kids all over the world are. And that's for better or for worse. There's a moment in the film where some of the parents are complaining that their kids don't read anymore. But that, of course, isn't a function of the Soviet Union or Russia. You can hear parents in the U.S. complaining about the fact that no one reads anymore. That's
right.
Technology.
Right. So the film doesn't really try to answer the question of what happened when the Soviet system broke down, but it was a real question for the subjects in the film, sort of like what happened to our lives.
Well, the film very much tries to show the perspective of each of the five of them, and how they all have very different stories, and sometimes very different perspectives on the very same event. The five of them are the married couple of history teachers, the businessman who has a chain of expensive French men's dress shirts and ties all over the country, a single mom who rents out billiard tables around the city, and this punk musician, Free Spirit. He now has a punk bluegrass band and plays sometimes in the subway, plays gigs all over. And the five of them really have different points of view, and I think what the film allows is the audience to really get to know these people well. People have said it makes them feel as if they've been transported to Moscow to sit at someone's kitchen table and have tea with them, and to really show some of the complexities and nuances. I think it's fair to say that not one of them wishes that the Soviet Union was back today exactly as it was, but certainly there are aspects of their childhood that they miss, and one can miss childhood without meaning that you're missing Brezhnev or you're missing, the Communist Party. And there's certainly things today that they all celebrate, and that there are things today that they wish would be a little bit different. But, I think that's also a pretty universal human experience.
So, living through these dramatic changes, is there some kind of organizing principle in their lives to make sense of the way things are today, or are they living that through their children? Is there how can they sort of psychologically come to a resolution that this is how it's going to be for the
Well, I think during Brezhnev, when all of them were little, there was really a big separation between the public sphere and the private sphere. The kind of the politics and the party, all of that kind of existed in a separate plane from where people really found meaning in their life, which was with their friends or literature or music. People had very rich personal lives, and each individual made the decision for themselves how much or how little they wanted to be involved in the system. And under Gorbachev, I feel that those two planes of existence really converged for the first time, that ordinary citizens felt that there was a reason to be involved, and marching on the street could actually do something, and their voices could change something. And over the past 20 years, unfortunately, those two planes have again begun to diverge. And people really don't feel that there's much that they have any ability to change that they don't like. So again, I think each person is finding the meaning in their life and the satisfaction in their life in the personal sphere. I think for Andre, it's very much building his business. For the Meyersons, it's their students and teaching history, and their son, of course. I think very much also it is people living through their children, and also people are going about their daily lives. I don't know, how much opportunity in kind of the pace of everyday life they want to sit and think about things, how much they have time to or how much they want to. Olga, for one, has said to me that if you really sit and think about the state of the world, you get very sad. So maybe it's better to just read a novel and get on with your day.
Okay. Well, Robin, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I should say, though, for all of the gloom and doom, the film is very funny as well.
It is. It's a charming film, and you do capture their struggle, but also their life, and I think that's wonderful to see. So thank you for bringing the film. My Perestroika airs on PBS. Check POV on the website for local listings.